As the colors change to fall, the shows just keep getting brighter on Global Voice Broadcasting. Shows about everything that matters to you, from love, living, and life. If you're talking about it, we're talking about it this fall on Global Voice Broadcasting. Don't miss a second.
I highly recommend Ms. Hicks. Her books, her CDs are encouraging.
I bought her book, A Hill to Climb. She's a very inspirational speaker.
And I look forward to one day being able to work with her.
Your power lies within you. Let it loose.
Aspiration, inspiration, motivation, edification, determination. These are the keys of life success, brought to you by none other than award-winning author, motivational lecturer, business consultant, and much more, as she gets you aimed to your purpose. And now, ladies and gentlemen, young and elder, from Hollywood to the entire world, here is your host of Aim to Purpose, the radio show, Louise Hicks, along with her co-host, yours truly, Kenan Wesley Mason.
Some really important concerns this Memorial Day weekend about the treatment our soldiers receive when they return from battle. And there's a Fox News investigation into the increased use of powerful psychiatric drugs on our veterans and the impact these drugs are having. Our Douglas Kennedy looked into this as part of our series on drugging the American soldier.
Marine Corporal Andrew White survived the war in Iraq in 2005.
Temper tantrums, tremors.
Unfortunately, says his father Stanley, he could not survive the drug cocktail prescribed to him by his caregivers at the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Once they treat you for PTSD, the first line treatment seems to be a series of medications. We call them cocktails, and if it doesn't work, they increase the dosage, give you more and more and more.
Andrew was prescribed 19 different medications from the VA and was on 5 drugs for insomnia when he accidentally died in his sleep in 2011. A cocktail that included the antidepressant Paxil, the anti-anxiety Klonopin, and the antipsychotic Seroquel.
It's inexcusable to be giving our military and our vets multiple psychiatric drugs in cocktails. They do no good, they do huge harm.
Peter Bregan is a psychiatrist who says the military and VA's use of psych drug cocktails is verging on criminal.
We now know that exposure to multiple drugs over a period of months or years leads to chronicity, it leads to disability.
And he says it leads to suicide and accidental death. Still, between 2005 and 2011, the military and VA went on a spending spree with psychoactive medication, increasing prescriptions by a whopping 682%. An increase which this military spokesman defends.
It might be appropriate, in addition to giving an antidepressant drug, to give a medicine that helps with the anxiety for a little while. And then when the anxiety goes away but the depression hasn't still quite remitted, you may want to think about using another medication.
The military says the use of drug cocktails is safe if used as prescribed. What do you say?
I do not agree. There's no research available that we know of that says that multiple drugs are safe.
Unfortunately, he says his son was a guinea pig for what he calls psych drug experiments. In Charleston, West Virginia, Douglas Kennedy, Fox News.
Hello, world. How is everybody today? And thank you all again for joining us on this live edition special Veterans Day program. And we shared that clip with you because we wanted to bring this special program to you. And I am Louise Hicks.
And I am your co-host, Kenan Mason. And I want to say, as always, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone listening and watching Aim to Purpose, the radio show, as we bring you this special Veterans Day edition of Aim to Purpose. As our guests today are Jim Dolan and Stan White. Today's topic, This edition of Aim to Purpose is post-traumatic stress disorder, helping veterans, knowing the signs, and next steps. And this is a very special edition because also this is going to be our final show for this season, as we are taking a hiatus so we can bring you bigger and better shows for the new year, as we will be back in January of 2016.
Yes, we will be back. So today is our final live show for the season, and we look forward to our next season. And we would like to thank all of our viewers from across the world, as well as our special guests that we've shared throughout the year with everyone, and bringing you subjects that really matter, because that's what Aim to Purpose is all about. We like to share issues that are relevant, and that's what we do every week, live. Every week we share relevant issues, and what more relevant issue can we share than this one about psychotropic drugs, psychiatric drugs, and how they are impacting our veterans. And these are the people that are fighting for our country. And when you think about how they are treated, I agree with Dr. Peter Breggin, how he said we're verging on the edge of criminal here with how we're drugging our veterans. And I'd like to thank our special guests. We're going to get right into the program, and we're going to talk to our special guests today, Jim Dolan and Stan White. But first, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to introduce you to our guests, where our topic today is, again, post-traumatic stress disorder, helping veterans, knowing the signs, and next steps. We want to give you some solutions and some help so we can help make it safer for our veterans who fight so hard for this country. And we wanted to do this show because we know Veterans Day is Wednesday, November 11th.
That's right. And many of us around the world have heard this particular diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a label that we've discussed. We've had Bruce Wiseman from the CCHR here on the show talking about the drugging of the military, and we've had many shows about drugging foster children and so on and so forth. But this particular edition, we're bringing it to a more personal element, as these two guests here will share more personal stories as opposed to what we've had in the past, foundations and whatnot.
Absolutely.
Speaking on this matter, we have something even more personal that will resonate even more with the audience, because you may have a relative or someone you know may be in the military, and they may be going through these particular emotional episodes that's called post-traumatic stress disorder. So we're bringing this show to you and all other military veterans around the world.
Absolutely. So with that said, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come right back and introduce our special guest.
Yes, we'll be right back with our guests, Jim Dolan and Stan White. We will be right back. Don't you go nowhere. This edition of Aim to Purpose, the radio show, is brought to you by L. Hicks Consulting Services. When you want the best in business coaching, life coaching, or perhaps your organization, business, or company is in need of a dynamic speaker for an upcoming workshop or seminar, contact Louise Hicks for L. Hicks Consulting Services at 1-562-310-1495. From anywhere around the world, that's 1-562-310-1495. For more information about Louise Hicks and her consulting services, visit her website at www.louisehicks.biz. Again, that's www.louisehicks.biz. Or call 1-562-310-1495. L. Hicks Consulting Services, where professionalism is top priority.
Hello, world. Once again, welcome back, and thank you all for joining us today for another edition live here at Aim to Purpose, the radio show. And again, I'm your host, Louise Hicks, along with my co-host and my son, Ken and Wesley Mason. So we're going to go right ahead and introduce our two guests for today, who will be Skyping in.
Yes, Stan White is a retired high school principal. He is the father of Marine Corporal Andrew White, who was a healthy 23-year-old gung-ho Marine returning from a 9-month tour in Iraq, who, like so many of his brothers in arms, suffered from the seemingly normal stresses of war. Insomnia, nightmares, and restlessness. The young corporal turned to the military's mental health systems for help. Within a few short months, White became unrecognizable to his family. 11 months after beginning his first cocktail of mind-altering drugs, he died in his sleep from what the medical examiners ruled, quote, accidental overdose of medication, end quote. Since taking his first multi-drug cocktail to the date of his death, White had been prescribed no less than 19 different drugs, with many at ever-increasing dosages, including antidepressants, antipsychotics, anti-anxiety, painkillers, and antibiotics. The prescribed drugs, methadone, oxycodone, Paxil, and Seroquel, were found in his system at the time of death. Stan and his wife Shirley blamed the, quote, lethal cocktail of psychiatric drugs for the death of their son. Quote, we don't think they should be given to troops in the field, Stan White said. It's worth asking whether they should be given to anybody, anytime, civilian or military. The White family are advocating more alternatives for soldiers and have testified before the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Jim Dolan is the executive director of the Laurus Foundation and the co-founder of Healing Warrior Initiative. He serves on the board of the scientific and professional advisors of the Institute for Traumatic Stress. He is also the co-chair of the Illinois Joining Forces Behavioral Health Working Group's Complementary and Alternative Medicine Subcommittee. The Laurus Foundation began in 2008 with the mission to advance the lives of individuals with disabilities, with a focus on finding modalities that center on the body's remarkable ability to heal itself. Jim has been working with Dr. Frank Urasek for the past 4 years on the Healer Warrior Initiative, a self-health care training program teaching veterans to take better care of themselves, their families, and their fellow veterans. So let's give a warm Aim to Purpose Veterans Day welcome to our special guests, Mr. Jim Dolan and Mr. Stan White.
Hello, Stan and Jim, and thank you both for joining us.
This is Stan.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello.
This is Stan. Thank you for having me here.
Okay, and
Jim Dolan here. Thanks for having us on.
Okay, thank you both for joining us. And we showed the clip at the top of the hour about your son, Stan, Andrew, and I'm sorry for the loss of your son and what a tragic way for his loss. And but we do thank you for coming on the show and sharing this tragedy with us, because hopefully what we want to do is save others from this type of tragedy with these psychotropic drugs. So with that said, Stan, let me talk to you and ask you, first of all, I know in the clip you were talking about how your son was ruled an accidental overdose of medication by the medical examiner. I find that just unacceptable, because when we saw what was in the clip, and also that your son was on 19 different drugs. So if you're given 19 different drugs, I don't know what time frame this was over, and we know the side effects that all these different drugs cause, like it was brought out, the Seroquel, the Paxil, and I don't know what else. How does that make you feel when you hear something like this coming from a medical examiner when you just lost your son?
Well, in the beginning,
Andrew's mother and I, Shirley, we grew up in a culture where if you went to a doctor or a physician and they gave you medication, you followed what they told you, and we trusted them, and we did right up to time till Andrew's death. And had we known now, or then what we know now, that's a guilt that we have, that he would still be with us. He was given low dosage of Seroquel in the beginning. We believe that's the catalyst to kill him, along with Klonopin and Paxil and analgesic drugs. But he was giving, I believe he started with either 25 or 50 milligrams of Seroquel. At the time of his death, he was taking 1,600 milligrams. And we found out that 800 milligrams is a therapeutic max. So he was given twice the strength that he should have been given.
1,600 milligrams.
1,600 milligrams.
Of one drug, Seroquel.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And then they ruled it an accidental overdose when the doctors are prescribing. This is what they prescribed, you're saying, right?
Yes, ma'am. That's what he was prescribed. 60 milligrams of Paxil, 4 milligrams of Klonopin, 1,600 milligrams of Seroquel, and he was also taking some hydrocodone at the time of his death.
That is, and they prescribed it, but yet the medical examiner that is why Dr. Peter Bregan said this is it's criminal, and it is criminal what is happening to, as he also said, you said also, Stan, about the civilians, because they're doing the same thing to the civilians as they're doing to the military. And it showed in the clip how they increased it, and it's just totally unacceptable what is happening here in this country with the drugging of our masses of people. And when we look at and hear your story, it's I guess you could say it's an abomination.
Yeah.
I'm almost
leaves you speechless.
Right. I'm almost without words when I hear what your son was on and how he was treated, and him protecting our country. These are people that are protecting our country, and he was only, what, 23, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, 23.
Only 23 years of age. And how long had he served in the military?
He went in right after high school, so he went in 2003, so he was in about 5 years.
Okay, he's in there 5 years, and
right.
You know, being a human being and serving in the military, because I was married to 2 military men. I was married and divorced, and a lot of it had to do with what they experienced while in the military, because both of them shared with me the traumatic experience that it caused. And my first husband when he was even out of the military, he was still fighting the war, and so was my second one to a certain degree. They both were. So I'm familiar with what what they are calling post-traumatic disorder, but post-traumatic stress disorder. But who wouldn't be under some type of behavioral disorder when you're going to war and you're killing other people? We weren't designed for that, to just go out and destroy other human beings. Who would that not affect if you're any kind of human being?
Yeah, we've learned that we believe PTSD is a natural reaction to a horrific event. And
Absolutely.
That's right.
It doesn't have to be a military event, but any horrific event. And you don't treat that with drugs. You treat that with counseling, peer counseling, professional counseling. And what we found in talking to many veterans, that there's no one thing that's going to help the cure-all. Where, first of all, you have PTSD, that's a life event.
Right.
And you have to find ways to diverge your triggers, your thoughts. And there's many programs and many things out there that veterans can seek and see what works for them. And I just spoke at a retreat last week in Maryland. There was about 20-some veterans there. It was called Operation Tahitu, and they believe in healing the mind, body, and soul.
Right.
And that they do it through a ropes course, through equine therapy, and I believe those things are just the tools. What really helps is the camaraderie and the finding out you're not alone and you have a brother or sister that's going to help you through that. And I think that's the key. Is hey, I'm not an abnormal person. I'm normal. I've been at this thing, and this is a normal reaction, and I need to find a way to deal with it. Not cure it. You can't cure it. You find a way to deal with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And,
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
These alternatives that are out there, find something that works and seek it, whether it's service dogs or we have a program here in West Virginia called Veterans to Agriculture that's very successful. They're using their hands, they're growing, they're showing products. Some of it's beekeeping, some of it's husbandry, some of it's farm truck crops. It doesn't matter as long as you're doing something to get your mind off of what you experienced.
Right, because it has to be traumatic what has happened. And now, Jim, I wanted to ask you, because I know you've started this foundation, and what inspired you, Jim, to really get involved with the veterans and seeing their plight? What triggered you to really hone into this and start your program and share a little bit? And then I want you to tell us a little bit more detail about what is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Well, Lois, first of all, and Kenneth, Mr. White, it's an honor to be on with you, and I can't tell you how sorry I am that you not only lost your son, but you have to go through this learning curve that you have gone through. I don't think I can add anything to what you just said. Although there are a number of things we're doing, what you talked about is absolutely essential. The peer support has always been the number one thing that veterans need, and actually that anyone needs who has gone through trauma. That camaraderie, the brotherhood, is even stronger in the military. So you're absolutely right that is the number one thing that has to be done. These guys need to be connected to their brothers and sisters in arms, and they need to put their arms around one another and tell them, as you described, that there's nothing wrong with them, that what they're experiencing is a normal reaction to abnormal events. We're convinced that the reason that your son went down the path he went down, the reason that 22 veterans a day are killing themselves, and the reason that the VA is in so much hot water is because they're following a model that does not work. It's been proven not to work, but they're stubbornly holding on to it. Our contention is that PTSD is not a mental illness. It is a wound, and a wound that can be healed naturally. And the problem is that in the mental health community, the mental health profession, whenever anything becomes behavioral, they start to call it a mental illness, and then they begin to treat it as a mental illness. And what your son experienced was simply being out of balance. He had served in combat. From what you said, he served for 5 years, comes back, and things do not feel like they're in balance. And if I heard you correctly, when you talked about the variety of programs that are out there, you said that there's just not one simple solution, correct?
That's my belief, yes. I think that you have to find what's helping you. The most common thing that, like you said before, I think is just the peer counseling, being with other people that share what you've had and find out that that was a normal reaction, and we need to work a way to diverge our triggers. And I have a good friend that works with me, is a Vietnam vet, and he's dealt with this for years, and he is just now coming to grips with it through a couple of programs. One is Guitar for Vets. Another is prolonged exposure, that he found that the two triggers that he had was rice and diesel fuel. So he buys a diesel truck and his wife cooks rice every day for a long period of time to find out, hey, I can get over this. And he has. He's dealing with it now.
That's amazing, an amazing story that you just shared, because that's one of the issues that I have with psychiatrists. Many of them, not like Dr. Bregan, because they don't get to the root cause of what the problem may be. They are so quick to shove a pill down the throat of whomever they are treating, the patient. And I became an advocate because of my son, who was diagnosed with a rare bone cancer at the age of 14, and they started giving him Zoloft, and that's what triggered his mental illness, and now he's been diagnosed as schizophrenic. And you talked about your son Andrew being given the Seroquel. Well, I have a bottle here of what my son was also given, and this is Seroquel. My son was given this. Here's another one he was given. This is years down the road after he became an adult. Here's another one called Cymbalta that he was given. And these drugs, according to what I have read about them, particularly Seroquel, which is fastly becoming known as Serokill, Kill, is a seriously dangerous drug from what I have read about it.
Yeah, actually, I have here the side effects. Actually, here, this is from rxlist.com. Right here it says Seroquel RX is an oral antipsychotic drug prescribed for the treatment of schizophrenia and acute treatment of manic and mixed episodes associated with, in this case, bipolar 1 disorder. Common side effects of Seroquel include headache, agitation, dizziness, drowsiness, tired feeling, increased appetite, weight gain, stomach pain or upset, nausea, vomiting, constipation, dry mouth, sore throat, breast swelling or discharge, or missed menstrual periods. More side effects of Seroquel include orthostatic hypotension, seizures, hypothyroidism, tardive dyskinesia, neuroleptic, malignant syndrome, high blood cholesterol, and triglyceride levels.
Now,
all that.
Why would anybody want to prescribe that other than that it's profitable and it's about the greed that these drug manufacturers and pharmaceutical companies are raking in billions? And the last I checked, I think it was 2011 or 12, it was over 300 billion, I believe. Was it worldwide? I think. And Seroquel, you were speaking, Stan, about the milligram of your son. This bottle here for my son was 300 milligrams. This one that I just held up of Seroquel. He was being given 300 milligrams. He's never been to the military, of course, because he was diagnosed with this rare cancer at 14. He's 34. So I have been battling with the system for 20 years, and it has been a tough battle. So I understand what this system and how corrupt it is, because even when we write to our legislators, they will send you a bogus letter back, and they don't want to touch the issue of launching a federal investigation, public federal independent investigation into what these drugs are doing to our population here in America. I just got a letter back from Senator Feinstein where I was asking about launching a federal public independent she's our state senator here in Washington, D.C. from California. Also, our state senator in Sacramento here from California, Senator Tony Mendoza, just got a letter back from him that was bogus as well. And we get these bogus letters back from these legislators. So I just called his office this morning to call them out on it. Why is it they are afraid, it appears, unless they're in cahoots with them, to launch a public federal investigation? And we know mainstream media is not going to touch it, because guess who they're being paid for their advertisement and sponsors? They're paid by big pharma and the drug industry, because when you see these commercials, they tell you all of these side effects that my son, this is my oldest son, Ken, in here, that he just read, that these drugs are killing us, actually.
Yeah.
And it's criminal. It is verging on criminal. It is criminal, actually. I don't think it's verging on it any longer. I think it is criminal.
It is criminal, and they always tell you all the things that will happen to you in an adverse way, but never tell you what could possibly happen to you with these drugs in a positive way. And that which is the reason why rarely you see anybody say, or any doctor or psychiatrist say, that, hey, my patient was healed or cured from Seroquel. My patient was healed from Cymbalta. You never hear that, ever.
No, I talk to groups quite often, and I've had a lot of people come up and tell me, well, yeah, I was on these drugs.
Is that you, Stan?
Yes.
Okay.
And it made me feel terrible, so, I found a way to get off of them gradually. I've not yet to have anyone to come up to me and say, yeah, I take Seroquel and it works for me.
Right.
Maybe it does.
Yes.
Maybe it does for someone, but I haven't heard that.
And you won't hear it. You won't hear it, Stan, because it does not work, as Dr. Peter Bregan said. And we've had other guests on our show, Dr. Jeffrey Shaler, who is a psychologist, who also shared information about the drugs. And it's Dr. Gary Knows, who's in Minnesota, who has done studies and has gotten some of his patients off of, he's a retired medical doctor now. He's not a psychiatrist, he's a medical doctor. That's his specialty, general practice. And you are so right, what you're saying. Both of you have really shared something vital when you stated about what post-traumatic stress and disorder really is. And I like what you also said, Stan, about when you were asked that question, if you want to elaborate on it some more, about them saying, I think it was that it was safe, the drugs were safe, and it was an accidental overdose, because sometimes they'll say, well, you didn't take it as prescribed, and you're saying your son took these drugs, 19 of them, as prescribed. So how can we say they're safe? Could you elaborate some more, both you and Jim, on that?
Yeah, we can, because I have yet to find a study that showed how these drugs react with each other. How does Paxil react with Klonopin and Seroquel and analgesic drugs? I don't think there's any study. Maybe there is, but I haven't been able to find it. And
Stan,
two of the side effects that you're going through the side effects a while ago, and there was a lawsuit settled several $1 million several years ago, Seroquel, over causing diabetes. That's a big side effect. And then they're finding cardiac arrest, something called QT prolongation, that it causes your heart rhythm to be out of rhythm. And we believe that's what caused Andrew's death. Because, you're 23 years old and you go to sleep and don't wake up. We started this research. We found that within 4 months of Andrew's death, there were 4 people in the Charleston, West Virginia area within a 50-mile radius that had died. And I think Dr. Bauman wrote about it, called the Charleston Four. He refers to it quite often. Andrew White, Nicholas Endicott, Eric Lane, and Derek Johnson all died in their sleep, and every one of them was taking the drug Seroquel.
Mm-hmm.
That's what started us on our mission.
And that was Dr. Bauman, you said, that did this?
Dr. Fred Bauman, right.
I've heard of him.
He's written several articles about that, yes. He's from California, in El Cajon, in the San Diego area.
Okay, I'll have to see if I can get him on the show, because his name has been mentioned on our show by Dr. Stan Wiseman. He's not a doctor, but he's the president of CCHR.
Bruce Wiseman.
Bruce Wiseman, I'm sorry.
Yes, Bruce Wiseman, yes. I know Bruce.
I'm saying Stan because I'm talking to Stan. Bruce Wiseman, right. He's the president of the Citizens Commission on Human Rights. And that is amazing. And I had not heard about this lawsuit that you just brought up, that they got millions, they won millions because the Seroquel caused them diabetes?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Were you aware of that one,
one,
Jim? I didn't know about that.
I believe it was 2010. I believe it was when it was, and it wasn't even contested. I mean, they just paid the money.
Wow.
Well, that's
Right.
That's actually what's going on. Is that they are settling these cases and sealing the records so that it doesn't become widely known that these drugs have had the adverse side effects, including suicide and accidental death. There's no question that what
Now,
Stan
this is
and his
Jim
fam-
speaking, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There's no question that what Stan and his family have experienced is happening all over the country. And I don't know how much more time we have, but there are two fronts, two battles going on.
We have
When
about
you
20 minutes or so.
Okay. Because what I want to be able to do is have Stan and myself kind of speak to your audience about what they can do.
Right. That's what we were going to do. We were going to take a commercial after you finish, and then we're going to come back and talk about Dr. Yursek and the last 20 minutes of the show, because you've shared some vital information about what post-traumatic stress disorder and how these drugs can wreak the side effects. And we know these are things that they don't want the public to know. And you will never hear this information given. If they say it on mainstream media, they're going to gloss over it and keep moving. So when you finish up, Jim, we're going to take a commercial break, and we're going to come back, and we want to talk about what we can do, some of the next steps and the program, share the programs, how we can get help for our veterans in the next 20 minutes or so we have. So
Okay.
finish
Well,
up with your statement.
Yeah, I'll just set it up before we go to break.
Right.
There are really there's two fronts, two battles. One is to do battle where you have, when you contacted your state and your and the United States senators, to let it be known to them that you want this looked into because it's happening too often, and they need to begin to investigate it at the congressional level and at the state level. But that's not a battle that every parent, every loved one, every husband or wife can wage. The other battle is how to take care of ourselves better and not get thrown into this heroic medical model where they throw medicine at everyone. What we need to be able to do, and we can talk about it after the break, is what people ought to do as an alternative to taking these medications.
There's always an alternative. We've done many shows about how, like what you mentioned in the intro, about how the body has an innate capability of healing itself. Only when you give it the necessary tools. The body works from what's necessary, and the body heals from having what's necessary. When you give it what's necessary for life or for natural mechanical function, you're going to get a healthy person despite whatever traumatic events, whether it's military or some other family traumatic event, someone passed away, whatever the event is. There are ways to come to grips with the situation, know how to handle your emotions, and know how to move forward in life and use those emotions to your advantage so you can help someone else.
And that is so true. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk about those two issues that you brought up, the fact that we have to write to these people and continuously write and ask them to launch these investigations, look at it, because I have to take it personal with me because my son is suffering the same. He's here, but he's suffering because he's on these psychotropic drugs. I just got conservatorship over him, and I'm fighting a battle here, and I have some allies, but it's very difficult because these legislators, these politicians do not want to investigate because of all the greed and the profits and the lobbyists. And when we come back, we'll talk about that in the next steps in our about 20 minutes left. So let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
Yes, Jim Dolan and Stan White are our guests. The topic today is a great one: post-traumatic stress disorder. If you know anyone that has this or has been diagnosed with this particular ailment or disorder, as they call it, this is the show to listen to. It's Aim to Purpose, the radio show. We will be right back. Hello, world. Hey, it's the 1-year anniversary of Aim to Purpose, the radio show. So first, we thank the staff at Global Voice Broadcasting for the platform and the opportunity. Go to gvbstudios.com/show/A2P. Next, we thank our wonderful guests that have graced the airwaves of Aim to Purpose over the past year, like Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn from the documentary Forks Over Knives, Nazir Alim Bey with his soon-to-be-released documentary entitled Melanin, the God Particle, from the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, Dr. Jeffrey A. Shaler, and Professor Baron K. Brown, who's become a regular on the show. Internationally, we've had guests such as Bridget Nkuna and Sarah Jane Farrell from South Africa, award-winning author F.T. Camargo from Brazil, Brenda Pierce, the Empower Nurse from Canada, double Olympic medalist from the British cycling team Brian Steele, and many other great guests that have openly shared their knowledge, humor, wit, and wisdom with the A2P universe. And most important, we thank you, the listening and viewing audience, for tuning in each and every Monday. Information is power, and the more our audience grows, the more open minds that'll receive the information, which makes all of us powerful. So we encourage all of you to spread the word about Aim to Purpose, the radio show. Lastly, if you know someone with a product, business, or foundation that's interested in advertising as a sponsor for the show, contact A2P host Louise Hicks at louisehicks.biz or Shamika Brown at divinebrownmedia.com. Be a part of the A2P movement, as there is always power in numbers of like minds that multiply. And follow us on social media at Aim to Purpose, #A2P. Once again, thank you all from Aim to Purpose, the radio show.
Hello, world. We are back, and we're with our special guests, Jim Dolan and Stan White. And our topic today, again, is post-traumatic.
Chuck Arnold, thank you for calling. Please leave your name, telephone number, and any message, and we will return your call as soon as possible. If you need to get in touch.
There we go.
Technical
difficulties. But again, our topic is post-traumatic stress disorder, helping veterans knowing the signs and next steps. And we've talked about the help and knowing the signs, and we want to talk about the next steps. And first, we talked about getting some investigation, taking some action here. So Jim and Stan, like I mentioned, I had written my legislators. What do you suggest we do before we get to the next step? Just quickly, when you write them and they send you these bogus letters like they did me, and I called them out on it, of course. So what should we continue to do? Hello?
Jim Dolan, are you there?
Did we lose our guest? Jim? Stan?
All right, we're getting them back on the line.
We'll get you back on the line, but in the meantime, I guess we lost our guest, and as we mentioned, they are Skyping in from West Virginia and Illinois, and we're getting them back on the line shortly. A little bit of a technical difficulty. That's what happens sometimes. You lose your guest.
It's okay, but post-traumatic stress. I mean, we can go ahead and continue the conversation until they get back on. To me, it's amazing that here, especially here in America, that we have a law on the books that gives the pharmaceutical industry free access to the television airwaves to advertise directly to the patient through television versus them going to their doctor as we would any other time. And now all people, whether you have an illness or not, they run those commercials enough to make you think that you have something. Anytime you run something repetitively in this manner, it will start to change, or it can influence your mind to change, to question yourself on how you're living and how your life is going. Do you have post-traumatic disorder? Because all of us are ill according to the pharmaceutical industry.
Of course. That's why about 70% of the American population now is on some type of prescription medication, according to statistics. And these statistics came from the government itself. I believe it's on one of their websites. I'm not sure whether it's the CDC website or another website, the Central Disease Control Center. But
and we do have Jim Dolan back on.
Okay, we have you back on, Jim. Hello, Jim.
Is Jim back on?
Are you back on, Jim?
I'm back on.
Oh,
there
great,
we
great.
go.
There we go.
All
and
right.
we'll get Stan back. We lost you guys there for a minute. But
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you
Yes.
just fine. Thank you for being back, and we should get Stan back on the line too.
Yeah, we're still trying to get him.
Yeah, we'll get Stan back on. But Jim, when we went to the break, you were sharing with us, we were going to talk about the next steps and also about how can we get this independent study. So shed a little light on how we can keep tempting, because these politicians, it appears they don't want to listen to us. They'd rather listen to their lobbyists and their drug companies and special interests. They could care less, it seems like, what we're asking, because I know I got these bogus letters back.
Well, in the time we have, I think the most important thing is for anyone in the listening audience, especially any veterans or veteran family members, is to give them some hope that there are some alternatives.
Right.
As I said, there are two battles. The battle that you've been talking about, getting to the legislature, trying to get them to wake up,
right,
is vitally important. But when somebody's in dire need, they don't have time to wage that battle. The battle that they have is the battle they have at home.
Right.
So, if I can, let me just give you a background on why it is that we're in the mess we're in the first place.
Yes, please do.
There are two medical models that are being followed. The traditional medical model is also known as a heroic medical model, where the doctor or the drug that the doctor prescribes are the hero.
That's right. Yep.
That heroic medical model is absolutely broken.
That's right.
Right.
The other model is the model that Kenneth was talking about, where we rely on the body's remarkable ability to heal itself.
Right.
So what we've begun to do is to treat all illness, all pain, as first emanating from the body. And we do whatever we can to get the body back into balance. What Kenneth's son was experiencing wasn't a mental illness, it was his body being completely out of balance.
Absolutely.
He had been in combat, he had been in traumatic situations, he may have lost brothers while he was over there. And as you said, Louise, there's just no way that we should have to experience those kinds of things, and being affected by them is completely normal. It's completely understandable.
Absolutely.
So what we're encouraging people to do, and this is across the board, but especially with veterans,
right,
is to seek out what we refer to as integrative medicine, as opposed to the heroic medical model where they rely almost exclusively on medication.
Yep.
The integrative medical model is designed to be able to take the learning that we've accumulated over centuries of taking care of ourselves and combining it with the new technology, new diagnostic tools, and so forth. So our admonition to everyone is that if you have a chronic condition, whether it's purely physical or if it has a behavioral component to it, we're encouraging everyone to seek out those people in their community that practice integrative medicine. And I'll give you an example. It would be chiropractors, acupuncturists, massage therapists, people that do nutritional support. These people, these practitioners, are in a group of like-minded individuals who understand the body's remarkable ability to heal itself, and they don't reach for pills as their first alternative.
Yeah.
And it's been done It's been done for centuries.
That's right. We've been programmed, literally. We've been programmed. Our brains have been literally programmed like a computer to believe that allopathic methods of healing are the end all, like you said, the hero. And their doctors that prescribe them are the heroes as well. But what most people need to know, because I have a massage therapy background and nutrition and wellness, that what you just said, again, that the body does have the capability. Everyone, all 7 billion people on this planet have the ability, innate ability, to heal themselves. All of us have it. None, and it can't be disputed.
But what they need, Kenneth, is a guide.
Right.
They need someone like yourself or someone in their community. That's really what this is about. It's
That's right.
Community-based solutions.
Right.
So what we're encouraging people to do is first seek out those people. If they're not practicing or don't understand integrative medicine, then we're telling people to walk away. In fact, we're telling them to run away.
That's what I was just going to say, Jim. We need to tell them to run away. And I say that because I've talked about this before on our show, because I had an illness. I've gone to all of these modalities, the chiropractor, acupuncturist, the massage therapist, the nutritionists, all of them. They play a vital role in our health care, in our body's divine mechanism for healing. And they should run like hell if a doctor, the first thing he says to you before he wants to get to the root cause of your problem and wants to give you a pill, run. Because they think that that's feel-good medicine, these modalities that the traditional allopathic doctors, because it was told to me. And fortunately, I had an integrative medical doctor who sent me to these modalities that you just spoke of. So I thank you for bringing that to the forefront, and that is what you're advocating. And I don't know whether we got Stan back on the line or not.
Actually, we do have Stan back on.
Great.
Stan, are you there?
Great. So Stan.
Stan, we were just kind of going over some of the alternatives, some of the first alternatives that people can go to when they feel out of sorts, when they're out of balance. There's a couple of things that people need to understand. First is that the body holds trauma.
Yep.
It physically holds trauma. And that's why we start with the body. There's a great book out called The Body Keeps the Score. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk wrote it. He's a psychiatrist, has over 40 years worth of experience, and he became frustrated with his own methods, including pharmacology.
Can you give that book again? The Body Keeps the Score by Dr.
Bessel van der Kolk. Van der Kolk. Vanderkolk.
Okay,
the body
thank
keeps
you.
the score.
Okay.
And what he realized was that you simply flat out cannot talk people into feeling better.
Right.
You have to get them feeling better. And Stan mentioned equine therapy. Well, equine therapy or hippotherapy is not new. The Greeks knew about it. And if a veteran, a warrior, came back and he was hypervigilant, couldn't settle down, couldn't relax, they would take him out into the country, give him plenty of rest, make sure he was fed, fresh air, and if he was hypervigilant, hyper-aroused, unable to settle down, they would put him on a big lumbering horse. And that connection between animal and human allowed the warrior to get back into balance.
Mm-hmm.
If the warrior came back and was sullen, withdrawn, and not, unable to socialize, they would do the same thing. They would take him out into the country, feed him, give him plenty of rest, and in that case, when a warrior was sullen and withdrawn, they would put him on a bouncy horse. And that horse and the human would make a connection that allowed the person to get back into balance. In fact, a number of people believe that horses and dogs, canines, were created specifically to minister to human beings.
I would believe that.
Snakes, not so much.
service dog. I have some friends that have service dogs, and a dog consents, or a horse consents if there's an issue there. And
that's right.
And they were created that way.
Right. Yeah, and that is excellent.
It is. It is, and I want to ask you a question, Stan, since you're back on. Did any of these doctors ever refer your son to a chiropractor, acupuncturist, a massage therapist, or any type of nutritional treatment?
No. The only thing they did was drugs, and in the beginning, he went to some group therapy, and it was peer therapy, and that seemed to help him, but he was still on the drugs, and then the group fell apart. There was some political issue. The lady that led the group lost her job, and the group fell apart. And Andrew went downhill from there. But the short time that he was in the group, that did help him.
Right. See, that goes back to what you and Jim said about the camaraderie between your peers.
Yes.
And that's
Absolutely.
so vital, see, but they never referred to any of these modalities that Jim just brought out while we were getting you back on the line. Now, Jim, you talked about Dr. Urasek, and I know we have about, 5 minutes left. Who is Dr. Urasek? I don't know whether I'm pronouncing it right.
No, you are. Dr. Urasek is an acupuncturist. He's has his PhD in acupuncture and oriental medicine. He was trained in China, and he works with veterans. In fact, Wednesday, he'll be treating veterans and veteran family members free of charge.
Oh, wonderful.
At his veteran acupuncture clinic.
And where is that? How can our viewers, if any, are in your state? You're in Illinois, right? Is that where Dr. Urasek is?
Yes, he's in the Chicagoland area. But my point is that what he's been able to do is recognize that simply because somebody's behavior, whether they're anxious, whether they're angry, they're grieving, they're having outrage or having issues with rage, all of that is the result of the body betraying what the veteran or the person knows they ought to be doing. One of the things that we've been trying to get the VA to do is to just simply do a simple adrenal panel on these veterans to see if their adrenal glands are functioning properly. Mm-hmm. The adrenal glands are designed to get us out of danger.
Right.
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight or freeze. So if these guys have been in stressful situations for long periods of time, or if they have experienced severe trauma, their adrenal glands become depleted, and they don't shut off the way that they're supposed to. Right. You're not supposed to have a continuous stream of adrenaline running through your body. It's supposed to turn on and turn off. Mm-hmm. It's designed to get us out of trouble.
Right.
But a lot of these guys have been under such stressful situations for so long. The adrenal gland it's a gland, and it is depleted. It doesn't function properly. That simple test and treating veterans with adrenal support supplements and nutrition can get that gland back into balance. It can get it healthy again.
Absolutely.
So there are so many ways, but the only people who are going to know these things are the people who are practicing integrative medicine.
That you're right about that. You're right.
And they would couple it with activities like peer support, like recreation, exercise. If somebody likes to fish, go fishing. If you like to ride a bike, go ride a bike. If you like to hike, camp, swim, do those things that you enjoy. If it's art therapy, music, horseback riding, all of the things that people can choose. What we're trying to do is give veterans alternatives by choice.
Absolutely.
When they walk in and the doctor says, you have anxiety or you have PTSD, These guys have one bag and one trick in that bag, and it's pharmaceuticals. And we're telling them, run like hell.
Run like hell.
Find something.
That's exactly That's exactly what we're telling them. And with that said, what we want to do is a Memorial Day. We know that clip that we showed was about Memorial Day. It was around Memorial Day, right, Stan, because they talked about it. So Memorial Day coming up next year, what I would like to ask both of you, would you come back and we shed some more light around Memorial Day, since that will be coming up on this issue, and get deeper into it, because we really want to educate people. And with that said, give us, both of you, give us your, how you can be contacted for veterans in your area, or if veterans are out of the area, quickly, and we will have you back if you're willing to come back around the Memorial Day holiday.
Absolutely, be glad to. But you can contact me through my email, Harold, HAROLD .white @frontier.com.
Okay.
Harold White at
Harold.white @frontier.com.
At frontier.com.
Harold.white at
Yes.
frontier.com. And that's the father of our veteran that we lost.
Yes, that's from Stan
Andrew White. And Jim, how can we get in touch with you? Because we know you have this outreach community called Healer Warrior Initiative. So that's a community outreach. So how can we get in touch with you?
Okay. The best way, you can reach me at my our website, which is healerwarrior.us, healerwarrior.us. And I'll also give my cell phone number, because if somebody, even if they're not in our area, I can help them navigate to find someone in their area who can help them. And Stan, if you'd also take down my cell phone number, I'd like to connect with you after the show, and so that we can collaborate. My cell phone number, the cell phone number is 630-750-5522. 630-750-5522. Anyone who's struggling, or any family member who has a veteran that's struggling, can call, and I can walk them through the process and find them help in their community.
Great. And I know someone that's a vet that I'd like to refer to you, Jim. He lives in, I think he's in somewhere near you, maybe Minnesota, Wisconsin. I'm not sure, but it's somewhere in that area.
Happy to talk to him anytime.
My phone number.
Anytime.
If you want my phone number, I'm sorry.
Pardon me,
If you want my phone number, I'll give it to you also.
Oh, sure. If you're willing to give it out over the air, sure. It's up to you.
Okay, 304. 542.
Okay.
0945.
And that's 304-542-0945. And that is Stan White, who is in West Virginia. And Jim, of course, is in Illinois, as we stated. And with that said, if you want to just say one final comment quickly, and then we're going to close from each one of you.
Yes, this story is not about me. It's about honoring my sons and our veterans. And the last thing is, if you're taking meds, please don't stop a cold turkey. See a physician and get yourself off it gradually.
Absolutely.
God bless.
Ours would be a message of hope. There are no guarantees, but there's always hope. And if you can reach out to the people in your community, you can find people who know what they're doing and who can give you hope and guide you through this healing process.
Yes, absolutely. And with that said, we want to thank you, Jim Dolan, and you, Stan White, for being our special guest on Aim to Purpose, the radio show. I love having these type of shows because the word really needs to get out. You rarely hear these types of messages on mainstream television or public television. So with the internet, these kinds of topics here get to another audience, and then it spreads from there to people that really need to get this information. So I thank both of you for being a part of this special Veterans Day episode.
And thank you both. And with that said, thank you. And with that said, We'd like to thank our viewing audience. As we said at the top of the hour, this is our last for the season live show, but we will be back in January, and we will be, all of our shows are archived on our YouTube channel, Aim to Purpose Radio, and we will be sharing with you specific shows on a weekly basis until we come back on air in January live. And with that said, we thank you all for listening. Have a great Veterans Day and be safe.
Until next year when we come back in January.
Your power lies within you.
Let it loose. Until January
2016. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and Happy Thanksgiving.